Well, considering the amount of fly life that's about, it's been really quiet. I've switched onto the Wickham in the fast flowing water here. It's got that little tiny thing, but not a lot going on. I might have to swap to a nymph, I think. Maybe a bit of duo. Just while it is quiet like this, I've had a few people ask me about the kit I'm using. Now, I've tended to stay clear of the whole tackle talk thing really, because it's so personal and it depends so much on where you're fishing and how you're fishing and what tackle you were brought up with. The important thing to remember, I think, is that the fish haven't read any of the books. They're not on any of the forums, and if you're doing it right, they shouldn't actually know that you're fishing for them at all. So if you've got a setup that you like and you're confident with and it fits your surroundings, then stick with it and don't worry about what the experts say. If you're a complete beginner and you don't know where to start, I would say seek out your local tackle shop and say, I want to go and fish on this river or this lake or this estuary or whatever, and they'll be able to put you in touch with the gear that you actually want to use. We're very lucky that we've got an excellent tackle shop in Crediton, and Howard, who runs that, has probably forgotten more about these rivers than most of us will ever know. So if you're fortunate enough to be in this area, you can pop in there and ask any of those staff and they'll tell you. Do you mind? I'm doing a piece of camera here. Look at that. Right, what was I saying? Yes, make use of your local tackle shops. They'll be able to advise you on the gear that you want. But having mentioned all those caveats, I have been asked, so I will just quickly run through what I use for dry fly fishing on these small streams. So I'm using a 7'6" 3-weight rod, the 3-weight line. I've never really bothered too much about the reel. I'm not catching very big fish. I don't need an expensive drag or any of that stuff. It just holds the line for me. On some of my rods I might overline it, so put a 4-weight on a 3-weight. What I'm really after is a setup where I can literally just pick the line up quickly, couple of false casts and reposition it to where I want. Like point and shoot type fishing. That's what I'm after. We're doing short, accurate casts. Now let's talk about the business end. So going back to how you were brought up, some of you watching this might know that I started my fishing on the Tean, and we basically copied whatever Mr. Weaver did. So he would use, well, at the time it was the Airflow braided tapered leader, which then became the poly leader. I never really got on with the poly leaders much, tended to have too much memory. But anyway, I got used to the idea of the fact that you had the end of the fly line, then a tapered piece of something, and then you tip it on the end of that. I don't believe it's got caught up. Well, sorry about that. See that line get taken downstream and it got caught up. Yeah, so I would have the end of the fly line, then a tapered piece of something, and then the leader. So what I use is, on the end of the fly line, I do a little micro loop. I'll put a link in the description to a video from Howard Croston about how you do that, rather than me repeating what he said. And then I've got a 5-foot furled leader made out of fly tying thread that I spin up myself on a little jig at home. If you don't want to make your own, there's lots of places that sell them. The only ones I've used are by Luke Bannister, and they were really good, so those are the only ones I can recommend. I've put Shorb loops on both ends, so the loop-to-loop connector here, and then another loop-to-loop perfection loop in the nylon onto the end of the furled leader there. About 2 or 3 feet of 5x, and then 2 or 3 feet of 6x down to the fly. And that's about as complicated as it gets, really. One thing I should have mentioned about these furled leaders is that you must treat them before you start fishing. If they get waterlogged, you're just gonna have so much spray and then sink, and you'll miss takes because you won't be able to lift off in time. So any sort of paste floatant will do. Not only does it help it make it float and help with the strike, it also gives it that little bit more mass to help it cast through the wind. So if you tried them before and thought, well, they're a load of rubbish, just make sure you gave them a good treatment before you start. I tend to carry complete leaders set up, so if I want to switch to say fishing a duo, I'll just take the whole leader and nylon and everything off and put a whole new one on, rather than trying to make up dropper knots in the stream or anything. Same if I'm going to fish a mayfly, I'll take the whole leader off and then put the mayfly leader on, which has got just straight through about 5 feet of 4X on. Right, I hope that's been of some use and it makes some sense. I've had a few goes at doing these sorts of videos and it never seems to come out right when I get home and look at it. So this might be another lot going in the bin, who knows. But I would just reiterate that there are no rules. There's no rights and wrongs in this. You should fish how you want to fish, how you enjoy fishing. That's the point. If you enjoy it, it's already right.